hardly wait to move up to Montana.
Well, it was very important to Wall Street for Trump to start sounding presidential.
It's a big satisfaction when you're able to help others.
Welcome to the show. My name is Bill Dindy, and I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you about good work and giving back. In my practice, working with individuals that are very successful, many people want to give back to their community, and I love Rotary International, which provides a framework for giving back. And the good work that they do touches not just Rotary projects, but Rotary touches projects with care, compassion, dollars, manpower, with other charitable organizations all over the world. And my guest today is a person who's been super successful in his business career, who has a heart to give back and has been giving back for years in Africa, who has recently started working with Rotary. And I say recently, okay, over the last decade, but he's continuing to give back, working in partnership with Rotary International. And it's my sincerest pleasure to share with you this wonderful individual, Mr. Michael Tenny. Michael, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Bill. I like the introduction.
Well, it is all true. And business-wise, I know a lot of people know you, not by your name, because you don't put your name on your products or your website, but by your website itself. Tell us a little bit about your website and how it's been developed, and just your business background, because I think it's a wonderful story. As today you're recognized as a #1 privately held sports, not even retailer, like wholesaler prices to the retail public. Yeah. Is that a fair description?
That's very accurate, Bill, and I appreciate that. We have a company, it's called Cheaper Than Dirt, and we're an internet company now. We started as a cataloger, and we were a catalog company for about 25 years. We've been an internet company for almost 20 years, back when it just started. We sell sporting goods online, lots of customers and clients all through the U.S. We handle all types of products, from outdoor gear for Boy Scouts, camping, hunting, law enforcement, military, any active outside person will recognize the name Cheaper Than Dirt. Website's active, got lots of traffic. We've been rated in the top 1,500 websites in the world, which there's over 1 billion websites, so when you get that high up, you've got lots of traffic. We ship orders every day, thousands of orders all across the U.S. for everything that someone would want for outdoor stuff. Binoculars, knives, scopes, ammunition, whatever you want, we'll probably have it.
It's phenomenal. As I talk to my friends, I would say half the people I talk to know the website. And I would say at least a quarter of them have browsed. And I would say at least 10% of the people I talk to have said they purchased something from cheaperthandirt.com at some time in their lives. Yeah. That blows my mind.
Well, when you're in the catalog business, we mailed 10 million catalogs for 25 years. So basically, if you're an outdoorsman or into that type of gear, you've seen our name in a catalog. And going forward with the internet company, we've been very successful at organic search and bringing people to the website, and we've been very lucky and very blessed. So just something we do passionately, and it's turned out well for us.
I love it. Now, how did you get all the skill set and ability to go from selling catalogs and doing some on-store retailing to now doing 100% online, and one of the top, it's a top privately held, but one of the top sports, what do you call it, sporting goods sales?
Sporting goods distributors. We're basically taking wholesale prices and sell it to the public. And in marketing, whenever you can cut out some functions or increase your liquidity, either buy at manufacturer and sell direct to the retail. Internet helps that a lot, because you can simplify things and reduce costs. Very efficient warehouse, very effective internet site.
How do you become an expert at all that?
Well, some of it's just standard business, but a lot of it is you just hire really smart people. So we've got experts in operations and management. Internet marketing is a big thing now, and we have to hire young people who are digitally marketing experts. Things I wasn't aware of. I've got a graduate degree in marketing, but that was so long ago. It was on things like catalogs. And as you step forward in the digital world, it's very hard to be competitive. But you hire the people, you put them in place, you empower them, pay profit sharing to them based upon what they're able to produce, and they all light up and do well. And we've got a group of managers, most of them have been around with us for 20 years, and the digital people are just barely 20 years old. So it's a fun mix, but we do really good, and we just give them ownership, not stock ownership, it's ghost ownership. We say you own it, you get a percentage of the profit. They try very hard, it works really well, and we're just successful for that reason, I would say.
Well, extraordinarily successful, and it's I think most of ours goals to stay relevant and to keep up with change. But you didn't just stay relevant, you went to the very top of that scale.
Yeah, several times we met some pretty big challenges in the market. Products would change. Simple things like a UPS strike where you can't ship packages for 10 days. What do you do? How do you get around it? Government regulations were always coming in on products. Simple things like water filters in the U.S. can't be shipped every state. State of Iowa would say no, that they have to be tested by us before you can sell them in our state. So we have to have complete restrictions on every product at every zip code, city, state level, things that could be shipped. It takes a lot of, computer capacity and understanding and management awareness on how to do this. But those are all challenges we rise to, and we've been successful through time implementing the policies and procedures to make it all work out. And sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's skill, but we're still here and doing well, so we'll just count it as we scored.
Well, it's truly amazing, and you've managed it very well. I would put you, people I know, probably one of the top managers, and you're so humble and quiet about it. But you have to be, to manage that logistics, to manage the legal aspects,
everything.
the compliance, the technology.
Well, and we've got 100,000 products. It's how do you keep track of what's trending up and down, and what's the most interesting thing, and what's the market turned to. And it's amazing how the young market's changed our market, because mainly we were selling to an older bracket, people in their 40s. Now we have lots of people in their 20s, and our people in their 20s are able to communicate to that group. So it's very interesting to be able to step forward and do that, and give this new generation of digital marketing people their say in the way that they communicate. It's fascinating, and it's fast paced, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
And you're staying young doing it, I'm sure. Because
physically, no, but mentally and everything else, we have a lot of fun with it. It works out good, and it's fun to go to work and see everything happening. It's exciting.
Well, I love it. You have a passion for it.
Yeah.
But really, what touched my heart is when I discovered you had a passion for much more than sporting goods and much more than internet sales.
Yeah.
Tell us about your real passion in life, the thing that really jazzes you up, or some of the things. I'm going to want to talk about the charity work you do in Africa, but tell me about it.
Well, I've traveled to Africa extensively, and so many times when you go somewhere, you get a feeling for a culture and a group of people, what their daily life is like, what they see in the world, and what they're about. And part of the most touching thing for me is you go to an African continent that's poor in monetary terms, but spiritually, emotionally, they're normal parents looking out for their children, want the very best, want education, they want health, they want their families to do good. And when you see their culture and their society and their efforts to help their family and help their friends and their community, it's very touching. And you realize there is no difference between a mother in Africa and a woman in the U.S. who's got a completely different set of skills and ability in society with her, with a group that doesn't have what we consider, and we consider ourselves lucky because we're financially well off, but in Africa they're living on a few dollars a week and just as happy, just as spiritual. Everything's going good in their life, but the things that they don't have that we take for granted, we said, how can we help? And in 2007, me and another gentleman started a charity called Orant Charities, and it's O-R-A-N-T, which is, if you go back to the biblical days of Abraham prayed with his hands up. We might kneel or have folded hands, but he prayed with his hands up, and it's a posture of surrender. What you're doing is you're surrendering to the will of God. And I think spiritually the will of God is we all do the best we can for our fellow man. And I think that's the main message of, the New Testament. So me and my buddy said, what can we do? So we researched where is the biggest need. Well, Malawi, Africa, where we have visited, is been the poorest country in the world several times. And it's always in one of the poorest because they're landlocked, poor agriculture, bad weather, dry, corrupt government, every possible thing that would turn a country into a disaster they have. But the people are calm and loving and wonderful, so it's safe and beautiful, and they call it the warm heart of Africa, and it really is. So we traveled to Malawi several times, tried to study what was possible. We met with local missionaries and people on the ground and said, what do you see happening? And then we dove into the culture, tried to understand how we could help as Westerners and as business people. We all know how to make things work. And in Africa where things don't work, you have to stay with their culture so that, you do everything that is the way that's going to work for them.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I think that so many charities oftentimes will overlay what works here, there, and we don't have the result we're looking for. To start from the bottom of working with the tribal council on occasion and other times directly with individuals to find out where are you and what do you want, and then business-wise see if we can achieve it. I know you had better results.
Well, one of the first things we found is that women do all the work in Africa. They do the farming, they take care of the children, they gather the water, they take care of the household. So we thought if we could empower this group, make them more productive, not like have a job, but make their life easier so they could spend more time actually taking care of their family and getting the most for the family system. So they spend hours a day walking, trying to carry water. So one of the first things you do is try to get clean water and close water, so the women aren't physically walking, and then clean water that doesn't have parasites or contaminated by chemicals or runoff. And once you've gone with clean water, the kids don't get sick and get diarrhea from polluted water. Well, we come in and, first thing is you get clean water, and after that's in place, then the next problem for a family, especially mothers, is their kids get sick. Malaria is a very common event in Malawi, Africa, and kids under the age of 5, malaria is a parasite infection carried by mosquitoes, and you get these parasites in you and you go through a running wave of fevers and illness, and the kids are sick for like 5 days. Well, us overweight adult males, we could not eat for 5 days, but an malnourished child under 5 days of eating and not drinking and then throwing up and having diarrhea, they'll die. And about 10% of those children that get malaria in Malawi die. Well, what we do is we come in and we have a medical clinic, and the medicine's very inexpensive, like 50 cents, but you need to treat them for malaria. Is that what they have? So they come in, they get treated, it's cost effective, able to do it quickly. Our clinic sees about 50,000 people a year.
And let's back up just a little bit, because we were talking about you were going to Africa, you saw the need.
Yep.
How did we end up with a clinic in Africa?
Well, one of the things you realize is when you try to do medicine, you've got to be in a stable location at a stable time. One of the biggest problems when people come to Africa is their business, their actual retail store business, is run by people that are serious. So they're off on coffee breaks, and these mothers just walk for 2 hours to get there. There's nobody to take care of them. The clinics in Africa aren't open normal days or normal hours. So we said, okay, Western business idea, here's our hours, here's our days, we're always scheduled to be open. It sounds simple by our standards, but when you're in Africa, they don't run by clocks and calendars. So we've brought in discipline of the clinic is open this many hours in this many days. Given that, you get reliable service. A mother will bring her child knowing that we're actually going to be there and knowing that we're actually going to have the medicine. You're going to see a doctor. You're going to be able to get the pharmaceuticals to get you taken care of, and it changes the process. So we started off saying we need clean water, and then we said we need reliable health care. We're not doing surgeries. This is simple. You have an infection, you have malaria, you've got all the common things. In the U.S., children don't die of ear infections. In Africa, they do. And the simplest ability to, distribute antibiotics saves these young children. So our goal is to help women and help the children, and that changes the whole atmosphere, is that the children live longer, they're now healthy. We did take a child under the age of 5, and they just don't even have malaria. You could keep them from that. They actually make twice as much in their lifetime of income when they didn't have malaria for a year under the age of 5, because they didn't grow up naturally. So many of the things that prevent us from being successful are things that stopped us when we were young, usually education, death of a parent, loss of a job, or something like that. Africa, it's the same thing, except a long illness, being sick with any type of disease for just 2 months under the age of 5 greatly decreases their entire lifespan worth of being able to have income.
Beautiful. And I guess my question is, how do you drop into Africa and start a clinic? Was this a clinic that was already in place? And
Yeah.
brought the operational skills to it? Or was it a clinic that closed down and you made a purchase? Or did you start and stop? How did that work?
Well, unfortunately in Africa, groups run out of funding. And a lot of Western people that work in Africa, they get a big chunk of money and they run in and do something. And their plan doesn't meet the culture and it's not sustainable. So what we wanted to do was create a private operating foundation, which means tax-wise, money's put into this foundation. We operate it in such a way that it's designed to be continuous, but also self-sustainable. So it operates on a very low cost. We have 50 employees in Africa. The cost for us to run that clinic is not very much. But other NGOs have come in and tried to create these clinics. They have short-term funding. They go out of business. So we bought a clinic that had closed. There was literally bat poop in the ceiling. We had to, take the whole clinic, redo it, rebuild everything. And then our plan was very slow, very structured, get it in place, ship over the equipment we needed. We could get donations for equipment, able to bring them in, set up a clinic, hire people, train them on this thought of, you work here, you're now taking care of people, so it's a serious job. You're responsible for other people's lives. So you have schedules, meetings, you have to be serious about it. And everybody rose to the occasion and thought it was important. We're able to take a clinic that had been closed for several years, start it. We employ local people. Everybody who works for us is local and well-trained, medically trained. We have everything from groundskeepers and security guards all the way to doctors, nurses, clinical specialists, pharmacists.
And I had the pleasure of actually visiting your clinic in Malawi, Africa, and I couldn't believe how expansive it was. When our viewers hear clinic, you may be thinking of a little minute clinic at the end of the strip mall, or maybe even a small hospital, but this is truly acres. Can you describe your clinic and what you've got? Housing for the people who work there, as well as a demonstration farm that you're doing behind the clinic. And
we've grown from really doing water wells and then grew to a medical clinic. And through sponsorship of the Rotary, of course, we moved on to where we have education for women. And I know the Rotary Club is sponsoring almost 40 women who are in high school level. And if you're in an African country and you get through high school, you're a very well educated, soon to be very successful person upon graduation. We have demonstration farms. We've got 35 acres of field nearby where we concentrate on showing farmers the latest practices in best fertilizers, best seed, how to use water management. Africa, where we are, even in the winter months, it's not very cold, so you could grow tomatoes, but it doesn't rain in Africa in the winter months there. So what we do is we pump water out of nearby rivers, come up and do product irrigation, farm irrigation to irrigate the local tomato crops, which our only input is just a little bit of money for the gas, a little bit of money, $10 or $15 a month, and then this irrigates the whole field. And 100 families could profit from taking tomatoes and reselling them. And they do, building all the irrigation channels themselves, manage everything on their own. And it just took a little bit of skill on our part to find, gas run pumps, get permission to pump the water, organize the farmers into a small winter crop, tomato farm for the summer. Works perfectly. We've also expanded where we have a women's run cooperative. And the way this works is they have women-led family farms. And the women, as all farmers, they're buying in small quantities of the seed and fertilizer and then selling small crops locally, so they get the worst, pay too much for their inputs and sell lower than they should when they sell. So we've come in, which my actual degree, one of my undergraduate degrees is agricultural economics, in how cooperatives run. So we've come in and we've taken a cooperative for women farmers. So collectively, 700 women farms buy their inputs together, their grain and fertilizer and insecticide. They plant, they harvest, and then we're able to use trucks to take their crops, sort them, bag them, and then send them off to a market, usually in another country, Zambia or Zimbabwe. So we're getting the lowest cost of input, highest output, crushing sunflower to make oil, and the oil's all profit, and they sell the mash to people who are feeding their animals and make money there. So as business people, we're always looking at how can we make money? And the money is used just locally. All the money goes back to the local farmers. But everybody who's in business always what can we do to do better?
Well, it sounds like the footprint of Orant Charities in Africa, Malawi, Africa, is expanding, and it's gotten larger since your original concept, but it all seems to fit that taking care of people. And once you take care of the water need, you take care of the physical need, You get them to school, you teach them how to get better outputs, then you take care of them economically.
Right.
I love it. And you came up this, like, through thinking through what's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's ironic to me how similar it is to Rotary's mission and the way they've gone in and worked with different countries and different communities.
To be effective at helping to end poverty, you need to understand the culture. I know the Rotary is very good about understanding the problem locally, and I've heard about your work in Cuba and Guatemala doing dental clinics and things like that. It's very important to see the problem that exists and then step back and say, are we inventing a solution, or what would be a solution there locally? What's going to work? And you also have to be very aware and say, what are these people going to accept? What do they want? And they want to be involved. They want to feel like it's a handout and you say, okay, the clinic's going to be free or the fertilizer is going to be free. When we drill a water well, it involves the entire community. They have to have classes on it. They've got to have a group of people that manage that water resource and make sure that the well doesn't get damaged. And if there's any operational issues, we're contacted. And they understand the maintenance and ownership required. So, and I know the Rotary is very involved whenever they get to a local level to make sure that their culture and the local culture work together to best utilize the processes that they're going to put in place to help end poverty or get a new service or a new piece of equipment in place. And that's very important. It's very difficult to imagine the remoteness and difficulty that go in Africa. And I tell viewers, it's hard to understand this, but when we showed up, the #1 business in the town was the guys that made caskets. And we're trying to put that guy out of business.
So Michael, y'all have done a lot of good work in Africa, and it starts with the water and ends up with the medical and goes on to economic. Can you tell me what the future is for what you're doing in Malawi, Africa, and how other groups have partnered with Orant to fulfill their own missions and goals?
It's been very interesting. When you're in Africa and you're working there, you think it's a huge project, it's a huge continent, how are you going to succeed? And what we've done is we've taken a small region, one small country. We're in Malawi, which is in southern Africa, and our campus and catchment areas, maybe 20-mile radius from where we're serving. So what we've done is gone to that area, found everybody who's working there and everybody who we can work with. So there's probably other organizations that we work with. We last year in the U.S. to find people who could relate to that. And Rotary has come to us and said, we've got money to help you in Africa, but we need somebody in Africa that we can trust and responsible.
Absolutely. And
Rotary said they want to sponsor women. So we did is we went to the schools. We said we're going to scholarship women and the ability to do this. They can be verified that they come from a family to afford it. And what would be even successful? Well, they have to be committed to the family. Just said they want to go. They could take off the farm and say you go to school, finish your high school, come to be a real leader for this. Oh, several they have to agree to it. She had force for the funding. She had the support of family or community. And then what happens is they'll go to a boarding school. And at a boarding school, she's there with other women her age. She gets highly motivated. She does well. She succeeds. And the way you succeed there is with a group when you see other people doing well. And we see it in this. With your group is working hard, you work hard. You make education, especially education. So you take a 4-year-old girl who didn't have much of an opportunity to do something. She's at a boarding school in a uniform, educated every day. The beautiful part is she gets food, she gets housing while she's there. And the entire years of the school isn't $500 US dollars to put a girl in school. Rotary came to us and said, we found how it worked. So we showed it to the school, we went to the accountants, we went to the people that run the school, the people who actually work finding young women, so it's not a random thing. We have people actually go to the colleges to say, tell us it's sure they're smart, and sure it's opportunity, you know, there's school of them, you know, we're down to 12, 15, 20 women that you're going to support. They get names, they go to the school accepts them, and the school is considered, I'm going to use an extra education to get a degree, they say, sure. And it comes with a lot of pressure, very young, you could see the lifestyle of the parents that have had, it's hard to break that.
Absolutely, and I understand there's pressure from the parents to come back to the farm because we need your help now. So getting to the boarding school and staying there seems to be important for the success of the family.
It's very hard to get to the cultural thing of you need to get married and have kids, and your children are going to support you from your old age. Have 10 kids, 5 of them live there for leaving, and some of those kids have support too. We're trying to break the mold and say you can have children, wait 3 or 4 years, have a lot, a career, I understand agriculture well enough that you can be productive, get a real paying job. Women can make money just as easily or even better than men. So our theory is that you look at your life and say, the 30 years that I spent here in school, education, stability, the main things, they look at substance I can achieve. And we all know how powerful it is for any young person I can achieve. They start becoming successful at school, friendships, athletics, everything on campus, and then become a better member of the family. Going back to the parents and say, my new brothers and sisters, here's how you get to a family farm. Here's the way that this family can achieve. Totally changes the structure of their family and the whole community.
Love it. And it's one great way in which Rotary had raised money within our district to do good work, and we found a partnership for making sure that the dollars actually went to the call we were originally for. And since that time, Rotary has helped the clinic in several other ways. I think it's exciting that your catchment area, that 20 miles, may seems to be expanding as you talk about that. What more is in the vision or the future for what you can do? Because in little areas, start with it, and you make such a big difference. But as you slowly bring, you might have hope coming over another 10 years. Just with your ambition of what you do things, what we can find all the time. Please share.
What we find is stationarily, and you need a curve of operational ways to run into the business. With physical facilities, with doctors and nurses live, we have apartments on campus, we have an operating clinic that's about 1,000 square feet. It sees lots of people. But what we look at is, if you go 10 or 15 miles away, those people cannot walk in when they're sick. When they have malaria or an infection or a
I guess outside the clinic, if you guys go, if the peace corps of the heart it isn't on the travel map of the things that people want to visit, but when you take people to see true joy in Malawians and the desires to have a better life, and they see work that is being done at that clinic, at the demonstration farms, at the schools, with water wells, they feel, I don't know, a desire to do more. People are extraordinarily host because you've got a compound with guest rooms. How many people can y'all host at a time?
We can sleep up to 15. We usually have groups of 8 or 10 per week. Leave on Friday, back following Sunday. Land in Africa, you run our clinic, we visit clinic, we do mobile clinics, see the farms, go to schools. My favorite thing is take high school kids because, you know, the world, living in their little world, but they see some just shocked. And then we relate to teenagers that are the exact age, and it totally changed the direction of life. They generally are culturally aware, they're outside out. They look at other people with a degree of humbleness and humility, and willingness to want art and help. It's crazy. They draw, sketch, play soccer, they stay up all night. They don't want to break away and come be with the adults. They want to stay with the kids. They're very empowered by being around children. They're always teachers sugar in the U.S. are all good regular food. In Africa, they're a bit sketchy. They don't have high quality protein, no oils, minerals, vitamins, nutritional value to food. They're just eating corn, some variety of corn.
On the project that was just giving peanut butter
Yeah.
to some of the children. It sounds amazing that peanut butter was so beneficial. We had several doctors on it.
The recommended that you should utilize. Literally take regular peanut butter, add powdered milk,
We want to do good for your community. We want to do good for the world at large.
Taken on an active role to